What's up, y'all? It's Zach. We Live in Corporate. Look, I'm so appreciative of the content that we create day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year for the past 5+ years. Yo, it's been a journey. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been rocking with us. If you didn't know, I'm going to tell you right now, we exist to center and amplify Black and brown folks at work. And we do that by having really frank, authentic conversations. Think about like the conversations you have with a friend or a colleague or a mentor or aspiring mentor or mentee over drinks or coffee or whatever. It's when you're really having those real conversations about career and life and navigating the workplace. I was not privileged to have a ton of those conversations, but the 5 that I did really blessed me. Now I'm playing. I had more than 5. I mean, come on, I've been working for a while. So I've had more than 5. It feels like I feel like I can count the really authentic conversations on one hand. And I just remember years ago thinking about what does it look like to bottle that up and make it accessible to thousands of people, because everyone isn't privileged to have someone that looks like you pull you aside over coffee or just on the side and give you the real talk. And that's what Living Corporate is all about. Yes, you're listening to the flagship show, but Living Corporate is a network of shows, and everything that we do is based around authentically centering and amplifying historically marginalized voices at work by investigating, interrogating the systems, and imagining a better, more equitable place to work. Yes, we fall into the diversity, equity, inclusion space, but we don't really use that language like that because a lot of that has been co-opted, watered down, and centered around people that don't really need it. We're trying to have authentic conversations every single day that center and amplify the people that actually need to be centered and amplified, which are Black and brown people, Black and brown women, Black and brown queer folks, Black and brown trans folks, Black and brown non-binary folks, Black and brown disabled folks, Black and brown first generation people, right? Black and brown folks, period, right? That's what we're trying to do. And so thank you so much. I'm excited about the conversation you're about to listen to. We'll be right back. Mary Francis, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm feeling so free. You know what I'm saying? It feels good to, I take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. You know what I mean?
Freedom.
Listen, it's been too long since you've been on the show. I think for newer listeners, it's been about 4 years since we've met.
Oh my goodness, no way.
Yeah, it's been like 4 years.
I cannot believe it.
Right? And it's so dope. I'm so thankful for Living Corporate because it's given me really healthy excuse to meet people that inspired me to even do Living Corporate, right? So I just want to say thank you. You've been, for those who don't know, you have been a longtime supporter, direct sponsor of Living Corporate. And it's meant the world to me. And if it wasn't for people, you and a handful of other people like you, I wouldn't be here. So I just want to say thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your relationship. And I'm just excited to have this conversation.
I'm excited about it too. And I'm so proud of you. And this just what you're doing in this space and what you're offering to Black and brown people who need that inspiration, motivation, who need to feel that they are okay, they are healthy and whole, even though the world may be telling them that they are not. It's just invaluable resources that you are providing. And I know that you're going to just do so much more as you continue to grow and climb.
Well, goodness gracious. Okay, I'm about to turn purple blushing. So let's keep it going. Now, you have been and you are a pioneer, right? Like breaking to this space, building the Winters Group over several decades, building incredible clients. And you've written more than one book. Like you've been out here writing, teaching, consulting, speaking. Talk to me about the inspiration for your latest book. And let's just start with how did you arrive at this title?
Racial Justice at Work, Practical Solutions for Systemic Change. Arrived at that title because, all right, so let me go back. 2020, right? 2020, as we all know, and we've all been talking about it, everybody said, oh my gosh, we still have racism in the world. Oh, glory be, we can't have any more racism. Let's concentrate on that. Let's focus on that. let's make sure that an integral part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion journey includes race. We talk about race. So we start talking about race. And then people started to say, oh, is that what talking about race is? You mean you're going to talk about white supremacy culture? You mean you're going to talk about a racialized world? You're going to talk about dominant culture? Oh, no, we don't like that because that doesn't make us feel good. So no, I'm sorry. We don't really want to talk about race. That's 2022, 2023. But in the meantime, 2020, 2021, I said, well, let's write a book that would help people understand how to actually actualize and implement practices that would be justice-centered. So we're taking it beyond inclusion, taking it beyond just equity. So equity, we recognize that equality and equity are two different things. Equality basically says we're just going to treat everybody the same. Equity basically says we recognize that there are differences and disparate outcomes, disparate treatment. Justice says we're going to correct the harm. We're going to go back and correct the harm. So when you start talking about, and a lot of organizations jumped up and put J in their acronym.
That was crazy.
Or JEDI, Jedi. Right. And I maintain that they had no clue in terms of what justice really meant.
Absolutely not.
As it's contrasted to equity, as it's contrasted to inclusion. Because justice requires us to correct the harm that has been done. And so banks said, okay, yeah, we're about that. And so banks started to say, we're going to give $50 billion to the Black community. No, what banks were actually doing is giving loans to Black people in the Black community. And those loans benefit who? The banks, right? And so is that the way they're correcting harm? They're correcting harm. So, okay, we wouldn't give you a mortgage before. So now we're going to correct that harm. And we're going to give you a mortgage now. But you know, you're still paying us, right?
And here's the to your point, right? It's like correcting the harm and not giving someone a mortgage in the past, which resulted in them not having a home. It wouldn't be giving them a mortgage now at the same rate. It may not even be giving them a mortgage. It might mean giving them a house. And see, like that type of framing.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah, you need to give me the house.
You need to give me the house. Like
right.
that. And see, like that type of like, because you give me the house because one, had you given me the mortgage before, I would have been able to get the house and be paying the mortgage. But now I got X amount of years where I don't have a home. So not only should I get the house now, but to make up for the lost payments and make up for the time, I should get that and see, when you start framing stuff like that,
right?
What it to your point, like Mary France, first of all, super fire, and I want to make sure everybody click the link in the show notes to learn more about the book. Buy it now. Pull your car over, just press the little thing on the bottom. Okay. Now look, going back to this though, I don't think that white America, and frankly, large parts of Black America too, because like we've been like deluded into thinking that capitalism is some form of freedom, but that justice and capitalism long term just don't mix. Like if an organization has been exploiting a group of people and justice would demand that they give the money back with interest, well, that doesn't square with like how we do business in America. So like I laughed, to your point, I chuckled every time I saw justice. I was like, yo, y'all watch cop shows every day. Do you know what justice looks like? It's uncomfortable. You don't want that.
Right, exactly. Right. But we wrote the book, and so not just me. So I wanted to lift up the voices of some of my team members, some of my younger team members. So the book is written by me and 12 other members of the Winters Group team. So we have chapters on procurement as an example, and so supplier diversity. We want to do business with Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, LGBTQ, businesses. So come on, y'all. We want to do business with you.
Yeah.
And then they have payment terms that are 90 days, 120 days. And so if you're a small business without a lot of capital, you may not be able to wait 120 days to get your money because you need to pay people. And, by the way, you can't go to the bank and get the money because the bank is going to make you go through. We've been in business for 40 years. I don't owe anybody anything. And it took us 9 months to get a line of credit, which I didn't need because our cash flow is fine.
Come on.
But it took 9 months to get a line of credit. So if I had needed that line of credit, my client's going to take 120 days to pay me. The bank is going to take 9. So I don't have that float. So there's a chapter written actually by Marisha Reese, who is now president of the Winters Group. And she talks about the hoops that we have to go through with procurement. So justice, right? Justice-centered approaches. And some of our clients say, well, you can come to us with a hardship if you need the money sooner. We shouldn't have to come to you with a hardship.
Yeah.
But my point about justice is justice helps everybody, because if you say, look, we have payment terms that are 30 days and that's 30 days, it's going to help the white small business owner as well.
100%.
And so this idea of capitalism, I think, is a reframing of how we define capitalism.
Give it to me.
Because we practice, capitalism is not going away.
It's not.
And if you think that by giving reparations and doing back pay and paying for, if you think that is going to harm your bottom line, it may in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to mean more success, because more people. So you have to have an abundance mindset and not a scarcity mindset to understand where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Because more people that are participating creates a larger and a bigger economy. It creates more opportunities for everyone. So in the short term, when you say, let's at least level the playing field, I'd say let's give, Black folks, let them give them a head start,
yes.
right?
To account for, yes.
Account for, absolutely. And by doing so, you're not going to lose in the long run. And even in the short run, you may not lose, because why should CEOs, big corporate CEOs, why should their salaries be 250 times that of the lowest worker in their company?
Right.
Give some of that money to the reparations, because how many more yachts can you buy? How many more private jets can you buy?
Right.
I don't buy y'all private jet. Y'all can have a yacht. That's fine.
Right.
But there comes a point where additional, the whole white supremacy culture mindset of bigger is always better. I always want more, right? When does it come a point where I don't need any more?
Right.
And so I'm going to now, support leveling that playing field, or providing the resources needed to correct harm.
I'm right there with you. I think the challenge is the funny part is that reparations, everything you just said about being having some form of justice and correcting past harms, that can happen and companies still make profits. But to your point though, it's about the greed. There's an insatiable amount of greed of just nah, I could make 5x in 6 years, but I'm gonna just go ahead and take this 1.5x right now. That's the attitude, this reactionary, very short-sighted, myopic view of return and value. So, you talked about earlier that, multiple employees of the members of the Winters Group came together to write the book. What was that like? And how did that compare to some of your other books where, you weren't sharing the pen as much?
Yeah, this was actually my 7th book. So I've written 7 books, and, it was hard. It was difficult because, diversity. Everybody is different, right? Everybody has a different style, not just a writing style. And I think, I had to realize that at my age and my experience level, that it's just so much more than other people on my team, because I purposefully hire people who are passionate about this work, have some background in this work, and want to be recognized and should be recognized as thought leaders. So that's always my goal. But it was grueling. It was a grueling process. I think there was some self-doubt among people. Can I really do this? And I did. I ended up having to, support the writing and editing of, a lot of the chapters. But I wanted those voices to be amplified, because you don't say it the way Mary Frances would say it. So I had to work on that. First I'd say, okay, step back now. They're not saying it the way you would say it, but let them have their voice. And what we're finding is that some of our followers are giving lots of kudos to Caitlin Peterson, who is one of our client success managers. She wrote a chapter called closed mouths don't get fed, and it's about being able to speak up. And she's getting a lot of very good feedback about the help that chapter is providing to people who may find it difficult to speak up.
It's interesting when I think about like just this DEI space right now, especially in light of like the Supreme Court decisions. What conversations are you having with your clients who may have some anxieties about what to do in this moment and feeling a bit rudderless or nervous about what they need to be saying and doing with their employees, with their teams?
We're at this really strange inflection point. So some of my clients are saying that they're just not sure if the commitment is still there, that they're hoping that it is, but they're kind of quiet. So budgets are being slashed. I have another client who expressed it this way. She said, 2020 happened, and she said, finally on the main stage, racial issues, finally on the main stage. And here we are on the main stage. The reason that we're on the main stage in 2020 is because of a traumatic experience. George Floyd and all the other things were happening, during that time period. And now she said, here we are 3 years later, 2023. We've been yanked from the main stage. No more. Nope. Can't talk about race anymore. And she said, now we're re-traumatized. And so she described that trauma. And as you know, just in the last few weeks, a number of chief diversity officers from major organizations have resigned or been asked to leave. And I just saw a statistic that said there's a 30% reduction in the number of chief diversity officers being named. There's 30% reduction in that position. Yeah. I was talking with my financial advisor who sits on a lot of boards. He happens to be a man of color. He sits on a lot of boards. He said when the seats that he's in, he said he believes that within the next 12 months, there will not even be a position called chief diversity officer.
Well, listen, because I'm going to tell you, I'm of the same mind about like 2025. And so, when I look at the landscape and I think about like just this space and commercially, like just where's the budget or where would people spend? I don't see them spending it on 5-6 people teams talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't see them spending it on $300,000 to $700,000 base salary on some chief diversity officer or VP of diversity or whatever you call them. Frankly, it's funny. Another day, Mary France, we got to come and talk about how they call these people chiefs, but they're not empowered as chiefs. They're like directors, but
they're like directors. Yeah. And in some cases, even managers, because a director typically has someone reporting to them. And in many cases, they don't have anybody reporting to them.
Right.
The solo operation.
Right. So, but all that being said, I'm just saying, like, to your point, right? It's like, I see a strong divestment coming. I think they'll still be working like, measurement, like data analytics type stuff. I think there'll always be plays for that because it's hard to argue with numbers. You talk about white supremacy culture and they're the worship of the written word. White folks love data. They love a bunch of numbers on the screen. And I like it too. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. But that's going to be a thing. And I also think training will always be in place, right? There'll be some level of virtual training or SaaS based services because those things are cheap. And frankly, you don't have to talk to a human being to get those things. And so I see that being, but I agree. I mean, I definitely think I'm curious about where like workshops go. So like, hey, embrace your privilege or this is why you're bad and like stuff like that. I don't know. I don't see it popping like it's been popping in the past. Like what's her name? What's that lady name? She been quiet since George.
Robin D'Angelo. Yeah.
Shout out to Robin D'Angelo. She was on the show.
Yeah.
But Robin,
we just did something together a few months ago. We did a webinar together for our publisher. We have the same publisher. Well, no, I'm take that back. Our publisher's different, but publisher Barrett Kohler, who publishes my books, put together a webinar for the two of us. And after that, she received it was very bad. She received death threats and things like that. Yeah.
And so it's like, those times like of charging $45,000 for a half a day session or, $20,000 for 30 minutes. Like, I don't know if departments are going to be able to get those budgets by in the next year or two. I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think, here's the deal. Unless there is some catastrophic event like a George Floyd,
Yeah.
something that creates this urgency,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to happen. And the issues like George Floyd have become commonplace. It didn't start there, obviously. Many years ago, we were seeing, black men, black people being gunned down by the police. I think George Floyd was an inflection point because a lot of people were home at that time. They weren't working and they were seeing it, and I think they were responding differently. But I think people have become hardened to it. It's just like, okay, just like the mass shootings, and gun control. People just say, okay, that's just normal now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think unless employees protest, unless employees keep this going and hold leaders accountable, those leaders who said we are going to invest this in supporting Black liberation, I don't think that it's going to happen. It's going to take the masses to demand, right? And that demanding may not look pretty. It may not look pretty, but we see the far right demanding what they want.
Come on.
They're demanding what they want and getting away with it too.
So you're 100%. I think you and I have talked about this before. To your point about it's going to take, collective action. The reality is that it the agents inside of these corporations have to be in coordination with outside voices to then really create corporate change, right? So me and 7 of my Black employees at my company, we could put together a great presentation and push and try and be like, hey, and we need, we're looking, this is a $300,000 program for the company the next 3 months. And that's what we need. We need the budget approval for that. They're going to laugh you out that room. Or they'll go, you make some really good, compelling thoughts. Let's take this and really review this. I want to share this with a couple other people. And it's going to stop right there. However, right. If there's some global protest or some local activist, something that's happening in that space, which then creates, a domino effect of people trying to just do what everybody else is doing. All it takes is one company. We saw with the murder of George Floyd, all it took was one company to do something. Then everybody else was like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to do something now.
We need to do something too, right? Yeah.
Right. And so, this is a great conversation. Let me ask you a follow-up. So, we talk about this space and you've been in this world, in this industry. Really, you're like a godmother of the whole space. So I'm trying to understand, do you feel like technology makes these seasons, because you've been through these seasons, I would imagine, before, right? Mm-hmm. Where because people, I think a lot of people think Black liberation and liberation of just historically marginalized communities is like a linear thing, but it's not. It's kind of cyclical and it's cyclical with a slight forward progression, but cyclical nonetheless. And so do you think that technology has had any impact on how you're seeing these cycles compared to cycles maybe 20, 25 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Technology has had a profound impact on this work. I think social media, obviously, the ability for people to get disinformation and misinformation is so easy. The ability to take a soundbite and lie about what it really means and take it out of context and all of that. And I think that that has done a great disservice to our work. When we hear people like Ron DeSantis say, don't say diversity anymore and trying to ban diversity. I think he called diversity, he had his acronym for diversity was all very negative terms. I can't remember what they were, but people hear that. And those people who don't want it, and there was just a study by the Wall Street Journal that just came out, I think it was last week, that showed that 78% of Black people were in favor of continuing diversity and inclusion efforts, and only 47% of white people were in the corporate world. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I mean, and here's the thing. I think the other piece is it's funny. So I listened to this he's a commentator, phenomenal mind. Name is Bomani Jones, and he was talking about I think he's most notable with ESPN. People were calling talking about change and things take time, and he said, "What is the biggest impediment? Like, what is the cause for racism today? Like who is the biggest blocker of racial equity? Like as a group, like who is it?" And it'd be white people, and they'd be like, and like the white folks would be on the call, and they get real quiet. Well, I guess racist, and he's like, and those are typically white people. It's like, yeah, hey, America actually has a history of doing a lot of incredibly challenging things, right? So like this idea of this idea like we're still trying to have this hearts and minds conversation, not really being transparent and frank and candid and accountable about, hey, why are we at where we're at? It's because white people want us to be here, right? Like, I mean, that's just the truth. Like, and I know there's aspirational allies listening to this. That's why y'all be aspirational. Y'all be allies. Y'all probably got offended listening to that. Yeah, what I'm saying,
aspiring allies. That's what I call them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But it's like, but here's the thing: is like, it's true. It might not be you, white person, but like, you can look around. Everybody has. I have a friend. So look, Mike. He's our head of insights at Living Corporate. One time he said, man, I can't stand. I'm about to go back to Thanksgiving. I'm going to have Thanksgiving with my racist crazy uncle. And I said, I just can't even relate to that. Like, I don't know. Like, yes, we all have uncles and cousins stuff. They might be a little off, but that's because of other stuff. Because the Reagan era was real. So, it's other stuff like that, but it's not like, I'm not over here waiting for you to say something that I just philosophically, fundamentally, crazily disagree with. Like, no, it's just my crazy grandpa, or whatever. It's like, and I told him, I said, look, like, I said, that right there, right? Like this dynamic and like the fact that you just said less than half of the white folks want to continue. So then how can we actually have any change? So to that end, right? What are some challenging, without dropping any brands, because I ain't trying to get your messy bags up. What are some challenging conversations you've had with executive leaders, like who are waffling or trying to just trying to figure out what to do? Like, what's some challenging discussions that you've had?
So the biggest challenging discussion is around centering, racism, and particularly anti-Black racism. They will invariably come back and say, well, we can't just focus on racism. We have to focus on LGBTQ. We have to focus on it all. That's the pushback and that's always been the pushback. My book that I wrote, We Can't Talk About That at Work, How to Talk About Race, Religion, Politics, because race in particular was the one diversity dimension that we can talk about gender. We can even talk about LGBTQ, but we can talk about people with disabilities. We can talk about generational, but race, there always has to be that caveat that, we just can't, talk about race in isolation. So that's the mindset for race. And the other thing that I hear as the challenge is that we're just not ready. And so, to that, James Baldwin said it, you weren't ready in my grandfather's time, you weren't ready. When are you going to be ready?
Right. No, 100%.
That's extremely triggering for me as somebody who's been doing this work now for 40 years. Extremely triggering for me to say that we are not, we're just not ready. So we've lost a number of contracts where we've got, like, we're halfway through, and then the client will come back and say, the client wants to continue the work, because typically we're working with the chief diversity officer or somebody. They want to continue to do the work, and they'll say, I just don't have the support to continue this work. I just don't have the support, and we got to stop.
Who made Francis? We're gonna talk offline. We got to get that money up front.
We have.
I was waiting for you to say.
Yeah.
That's I chuckle at that, like, because and that's where, man, we gotta make it. So yeah, we gotta make it. We gotta get you back, because I really want to talk also about how there's this space I've been experiencing, Mary Frances. It's like some of these brands, like, they see Black founders, especially Black DEI practitioners, irrespective of their seniority and command of the space, and they try to kind of play with you a little bit, like in terms of payment terms or asking for extra discounts or just like the subtle racism of that, right?
Right.
Like, have you ever, like, in your 40 years, have you ever said something about that when they come at you, or waste your time, or ask for above and beyond, way out of project scope? Like, have you ever had a moment where you've been like, hey, let's talk about?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we've gotten pretty good at being very clear about what the contract entails and what it doesn't include.
Yeah.
And being able to say, we're really happy to support you with that. We'll submit another, an addendum, or, an additional statement of work. And so, yeah. So, I mean, yes. And yes, not valuing this work like they would value, other culture change or corporate kinds of initiatives that, are really about, organizational effectiveness and all of that. They're willing to pay the McKinseys in the world, multiple millions of dollars
for way less work.
Right? So, and when it comes to this work, they're expecting a lot more, right? For less. And so, yes, we've had those conversations, and we just lost a couple of contracts just recently, and they said it was because of our price. And so the other thing that we have is, after 2020, a number of people got in this business because they saw capitalism, opportunity, right? And so, and they're not necessarily, many of them put their shingles out without having the depth to actually execute. But they're willing to do the work, for less money. And so that's where they're going with those organizations. We just got an inquiry from an organization that said, we hired a firm 2 years ago, and they came in, and now we have to start all over again because they were horrible, and the way that they presented this work was a way that turned everybody off, and now nobody wants to do this work anymore. So that's the other problem with people doing the work who really don't know how to do the work.
Yeah.
So they come in and they do, and then there's a bad taste in the mouth of that organization that can spread beyond that organization to say, we're not going to do this. If that's how this work is done, we're not going to do this work. We're going to do it in-house, right?
100%. Like, and to that end, I remember, like, there are people, and then I'm gonna say it, right? Like, to your point, like, people coming into this space just doing whatever, and it drags the whole brick down. Like, now it's like, okay, well, I actually know what I'm doing. You came in and said you could do it for nothing, right?
Right.
Even like even people who like let's just talk about like public speaking, right? So it's like, Black speakers are underpaid by a large part. Side note, shout out, thank you for helping me. I still remember you putting me on with that speaking engagement. But the point is, like, I remember there was a time when people who were just loud on LinkedIn, they didn't have any credential, they had no real experience, nothing delivered. They were just loud and had the ability to go viral on LinkedIn. And so they talk to me in private, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm taking a speaking engagement over here. I'm taking a speaking engagement over here. And I said, oh, okay, that's dope. Like, how did you, and it's all about transparency. So I'd be like, my fee is this. How's it looking for you? And they said, oh no, I just really got started in space. So I'm all doing it for exposure. And I'm just like, so now when people who speak for a living, right? Even let's just say like black professors and like, doctors and stuff who really are experts in this field.
Right.
A company's going to go, okay, I could pay $20,000 for you, or I could pay literally nothing
for another Black person, because it's another Black face.
For another Black person. And I bet, now that I look at your videos, I was a little nervous about bringing you in anyway, because some of the things you say make me feel a little uncomfortable. This person, I can tell they don't really know anything. I'll just tell them what not to say. They'll go up there. We'll give them the experience. So make sure they take a couple photos. They'll be fine. Fish sandwich, no mayonnaise, little mustard. They'll be okay. So, I'm hoping, as I'm disappointed in the potential erasure of the CDO role, but I'm also excited about this season kind of shaking loose any of the other grifters and opportunists from a few years ago. Yeah,
because they're not getting, hopefully, well, we're all down. Business is down for all of us right now. And hopefully business is down so much for them because they really hadn't established themselves anyway. that they'll say, I need to move on. I need to, move to another, another profession.
Something else.
I need a job.
So look, this has been a great conversation. I want to say again, Mary Frances, you were the inspiration for Living Corporate, and you continue to be a guiding light and a support here. You're a friend of the show. Of course, the Winners Group is a friend of the show and the network and the company that is Living Corporate. I look forward to having you back soon. Before I let you go, any parting words to executives claiming they want to do the right thing in this moment?
Speak up, speak out, and do not let those who would want to dismantle decades and decades and decades of work to create just an equitable world. Don't let those naysayers deter you. Stay strong and keep those positive, ideas about why diversity, equity, inclusion is good for all of us. Like Heather McGhee says, the sum of us. Because what we do, and Martin Luther King said, what you do to one of us, you do to all of us. And so keep that in mind and do not give up. But be louder. We have to be louder. Our voices have to be louder, much louder than those who are trying to just dismantle and decimate our work.
I love it. Mary Frances, we will talk to you soon. Make sure y'all click the link in the show notes. Cop the book today if you haven't already. And if you already copped the book, just go ahead and get another one. Give it to your boss. Give it to your cousin. Give it to your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving. Just get it. All right? All right. Love y'all. Peace. And we're back. Yo, thank you so much for listening to Living Corporate. You know where we at. We're everywhere you listen to podcasts. You know what I'm saying? We're literally everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about Living Corporate, living-corporate, please say the dash.com, or just Google Living Corporate. You know what I'm saying? At this point, SEO is pretty popping. You type in Living Corporate, we're going to pop up somewhere. Okay? Make sure you check us out. Links in the show notes. So you learn more about us, learn what we're trying to do. Make sure you actually create a profile on living-corporate.com. Okay? Make a profile on there so you can actually stay in tune and up to date with what we got going on. You make a profile, you select content that you're really interested in, and then we'll push content to you from our library. So you can actually have a curated experience every time you go and log into Living Corporate. Ain't that dope? Okay? Think about that. We got over 1,000 podcasts and different digital media and content that we've made over the years, and it's going to be all pushed and curated for you, baby. For you, dog. For you. All right? Till next time, I love you. Take care of yourself. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.